Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to our Sinai Temple Parsha class, where we study the weekly Parsha or one of the holidays, or a particular theme in Jewish tradition, which I'll be doing a little bit of both today, both Parsha and a theme. I have my coffee. I hope you have yours as we begin. So this Shabbat, as we have been in the mode of, we have the double Parsha, Bachar B'chukotai. And some of the major themes that you would probably also be able to guess include um, the conversation around the around the Shemitah year and around the Yovel year. So the Shemitah and the Yovel, the idea is that we allow the land to take a rest. It's a Sabbath for the land, which occurs every 7 years, and then the Jubilee year. And throughout the Parsha, there's a general theme that if you have faith and listen to God's decrees, because you have to remember, in an agricultural society, if you tell a farmer or you tell the community that for an entire year we have to refrain from touching the land, you can imagine the kind of fear and worry that and distress that might cause the people. And so the Torah is explaining, if you have this kind of faith and listen to God's commands and decrees, you shouldn't worry because God will bless the land. And of course, it will be fruitful and there will be an abundance of food. And you need not have that same kind of anxiety that you might have had otherwise. And the opposite, that if you don't listen to God and you don't have this particular kind of faith to follow the commands and the decrees, um, there is a long list. I'm going to read some of them. A long list, if you will. We don't actually call these like the curses, but a long list of tochacha, a long list of rebuke. And that's what we're going to study this morning. We're going to study the idea of tochacha, the idea of rebuke in our tradition. But I want to read some of the verses because it's Torah study, so you should hear some of the verses of this upcoming Parsha. So listen to the tochacha, the rebuke from God. If you do not leave the land alone, if you don't follow God's commandments, this is what the Torah says God will do. I'm just going to read a few of them so you get an idea. This is Leviticus 26:14. That's where I'm beginning if you want to follow along. But if you will not listen to me and will not do these commandments, and if you shall despise my statutes, or if your soul loathes my judgments, so that you will not do all my commandments, but that you break my covenant, I also will do this to you. Doesn't sound so great. I'll appoint over you terror and consumption and fever that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart. And it continues, and I will set my face against you. I mean, it doesn't sound great. Verse 19, I will break the pride of your power, and your strength shall be spent in vain. For your land shall not yield her produce, nor shall the trees of the land yield their fruits. If you walk contrary to me, verse 21, and will not listen to me, I will bring 7 times more plagues upon you according to your sins. I mean, this is pretty terrible. Basically, listen to God. Okay, don't let your own if you're listening to the verses, your own pride and your own kind of worries consume you, because God says, I have the ultimate power, and I offer my commandments for a reason. Now, you can take these literally, which I do not, or you can take the verses of the Torah and ask yourselves a few questions. First, you can ask yourself that ultimate question: what does it mean to have faith in God? And what does it mean to look at the commandments as a way of life and a guidebook, a way to navigate the perils that we face? Um, of course, our faith is tested time and time again. And I do not believe this is certainly a more modern theological approach. I don't believe in a God that punishes in the way that's described in the Torah. That's not the kind of God that I believe in. And certainly, if we went through, um, different theologies through rabbinic history, through modern history, That's not the God that many believe in. It's not the God that I believe in. That being said, um, what I want us to look at for the next, I don't know, 15 minutes or so, we'll see how we do, is this idea of tochacha. Because the way that God tries to um, improve the character of Bnei Israel is by saying, listen, if you're not going to do this, I'm going to exert punishment upon you. And the way in human society we try, at least I think, to begin when we're upset with someone's actions is we try to offer some kind of rebuke, some kind of criticism. We don't always go, at least in terms of our personal relationships, our professional relationships. We also talk about civil society in a different way in criminal law, but this is in terms of personal relationships. We don't usually go immediately to punishment. Now, if it's the case where, I don't know, one of my kids, we're not at this point yet, but let's say one of my kids breaks curfew again. I have 13, 11, and 9-year-old. We're not there yet. But if they break curfew, I don't know, 3 times in a row, then it may not be let's sit down and have a conversation about this. I want to give you some feedback about your actions. I might go directly to punishment, which might be I don't know, you're grounded. Yeah. Your phone, something like that. But on a day-to-day basis with those that we love and those that we interact with, the question is, how do you offer rebuke? How do you offer criticism? And how do you receive it? 7 in the Bay Area. And that's really the question I want you to hold on to. Can you take it? Can you receive criticism? So here's a few verses that I want to, and Talmudic verses I want to explore. Leviticus 19:17. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. Reprove. You shall surely reprove him, and do not bear a sin upon him. Meaning, we are meant to offer criticism to those that we love because it's worse to hold a grudge in your heart. If you are harboring some kind of hate or ill will against someone because of something they did to you or something they did people that you love, and you have the opportunity to offer some kind of rebuke, the Torah is saying you have to say something. Okay, easier said than done. And that's the foundation. What does the Talmud say? The Talmud agrees with this. Okay, Bavli Shabbat. Jerusalem was destroyed because its citizens did not rebuke one another, meaning the destruction of the temple. Why did this happen? One of the reasons is because we weren't willing to call each other out. We weren't willing to say, listen, I don't agree with your actions. All right. Okay. And it continues. It goes back, actually, but this is also from Masechet Shabbat. Whoever can stop the members of his household from committing a sin, but does not, is held responsible for the sins of his household. If he can stop the people of his city from sinning, but does not, he is held responsible for the sins of the people of his city. If he can stop the whole world from sinning and does not, he is held responsible for the sins of the whole world. It's a huge amount of responsibility that the Talmud is putting on our shoulders. What I like about this text is that it's saying you can't walk through the world with your eyes cast downward. You can't walk through the world claiming that you live in a solitary bubble because we do not. And so if you see a wrong, you have to speak up. How you do that and the way you do that will look in a few moments. But we live together. And so we can't pretend whether it's happening in your household or in your community. If you see a wrong, you're supposed to say something. Okay, I like this text. So Rabbi Yonatan Eibeshutz, say that 3 times, explained that a friend's reproof carries more weight than a rabbi's. Okay, so if you are in shul, if you're in synagogue, and your friend is doing something that you're not loving, Your comments, your critique of them is worth more. It carries more weight to that person even than the rabbis, according to this rabbi. Because this is what Rabbi Yonatan says. If one is criticized by the rabbi, one may think, well, if I were a rabbi, I wouldn't do such a thing. But when a friend tells you that your behavior is inappropriate, you may think, if he is careful about this manner, I should be too. Okay, I think this is a fantastic text because what this is saying to us, and I want to relate it to another piece of Jewish values. What it's saying to us is that peer to peer is the most valuable source of criticism. So, a very good friend, maybe your spouse, um, someone that you respect, but someone that is, if you will, on your same social level. If there's an authority figure that is rebuking you, you might say to yourself, even though it's not fair because rabbis are human beings too, you might say to yourself, well, they're expected to hold themselves to a higher standard. And so, what they're expecting me to do, that's not fair for that authority figure to say that to me. They should expect that of themselves, but they shouldn't necessarily expect that of me. But a friend to a friend, or a spouse to a spouse, or someone on the same social level, you might be more willing to listen to that person, thinking to yourself, okay, if they're going to call me out on my gossip, I hear that. If they're willing to kind of look at themselves that way, I'm willing to change my behavior as well, whatever it whatever it may be. Or I don't know, if your friend has an inclination to drive through stop signs. You're sitting in the car and you say, "Hey, you just rolled through that stop sign." And you think to yourself, sometimes I do that too, but the two of you look at each other and say, we want to do better. Let's hold ourselves accountable. We want to do this together. Regard. Meaning, at least in his generation, and I would assume in our generation too, there are very few people in this world that can actually take it. I mean, I want you to think to yourself, are you one of those people, if someone offered you real critique, real criticism, could you take it? And I want you to think about where and when you might be able to receive it. So,
Luke what's up, Luke?
I don't know. If someone pulls you to the side at a party, are you in the right frame of mind to receive that kind of criticism? Would you even be able to receive that kind of criticism if someone texted you or called you up on the phone and said, "Listen, this has been really weighing on me. I just wanted to offer you some advice or some suggestions." The only way that the rehabilitation of the person is going to take place is if you, the person who's offering the critique, thinks to yourself, will they be able to receive it? Okay, will they be if they won't be able to receive it, it may not even be worth it. But will they be able to receive it? And if there's a possibility of yes, then where and when should I offer the critique? Okay. So another piece of advice that's given is that you can't and this isn't that fun, but you're not supposed to just offer criticism once. You should offer the feedback a few times if the person hasn't changed. Now, there's a difference between insulting someone and offering suggestions. But if you're finding that multiple times the person has not changed, maybe that's when you hear yourself, you know what, this person obviously can't hear the criticism, so I'm going to step back. But see a few times, try a few times. Okay, this is such an interesting offering. It says every community must appoint a wise and respected person whose function it is to publicly chastise wrongdoing and call for repentance. So you can decide, who do you think that person should be? I don't want it to be me, but who's kind of the public person in our community that should be the ultimate one to offer rebuke? Um, okay, a few other oh, I love this. Okay. I just want to give you maybe one or two more pieces and then we'll end. And you can always feel free to offer me some opinions on this topic. I would love to hear your thoughts. Um, but the Hofetz Chaim, okay, this is fantastic. Remarked upon seeing a man yelling at another man. And he said, when you put on tefillin or perform other commandments, you do not raise your voice. So too with rebuke. Meaning, when you engage in some of the most important of our commandments, the daily commandment of putting on tefillin, it's really a silent, um, sacred act. And so, if you look at rebuke the same way, that this is more of I don't know if silent, but a sensitive, sacred act, perhaps the engagement with the other person feels very different. How do you engage in a holy conversation with someone else so that they're able to improve and so that you're able to improve? Okay, I just want to leave you with one more piece. And this is, I think, the most important. So Bava Metzia says, the Talmud says, correct yourself before you correct others. So although the Parsha gives us this sense of rebuke from God, if you don't do this, then this will happen. What I love about our rabbinic tradition, the Talmudic tradition, um, is that the advice is, before you start rebuking others, look at yourself first. What is it that you're about to criticize in another person and determine whether or not that critique should actually be something that you listen to first? It doesn't negate what I said at the beginning. If you are holding some kind of grudge or there's just some kind of um, hurt that you're holding on to in your heart because of something that someone that you love did or someone that you respect did, you're supposed to tell them. But at the same time, you should be able to look inward and ask yourself the question, am I just as guilty of this mistake? Am I just as guilty of this sin, if you will? I love that we have a tradition that wants us to improve, to help our souls improve, to help mend our souls. And I love that we have a tradition that says we can't live in this world alone, but we are meant to live in this world with others. And so sometimes that means offering critique or offering improvements with a particular sense of sensitivity, compassion, and love. Because at the end of the day, if the person can't hear the critique, it may not be worth opening our mouths. So hope you have a day of self reflection and a day in which you think to yourselves, in which ways will my words matter? Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.